There's a reason people underestimate you, why they interrupt you mid-sentence, why they constantly test your limits, stretch your patience, and question your worth. It's not because you're incapable or incompetent, it's because you're harmless. You reveal your intentions too soon. You care too openly, too visibly. You seek approval before you command respect. You want to be liked before you're feared. But in a Machiavellian world, being liked without being feared is no different than being invisible. The truth is, the world doesn't fear virtue. It fears the unknown, the unpredictable. You've been conditioned, molded from a young age to be perceived as a good person. Smile more. Be welcoming. Always be kind first. Be easy to talk to. Be agreeable. But here lies the paradox: people don't respect what they can fully see or use it. Because what is seen clearly can be mapped, and what can be mapped can be manipulated. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. His writings weren't meant to soothe, they were meant to caution. A prince who is not feared, he warned, will always be vulnerable. This doesn't mean you must become aggressive or cruel. It means you must become unreadable, less like a book and more like a sealed envelope. In a room full of voices fighting to be heard, it's the one who remains silent that captures all the attention, not because people are waiting for a joke or a smile, but because they're bracing for the unknown. That's the target. To be observed, not for admiration, but for calculation. When you're not perceived as a threat, you become a tool, something useful, not someone powerful. Think back. How many times in your life were you dismissed until you withdrew? How many came running back only when you stopped explaining yourself? How often did people respect your boundaries only after you enforced them with silence and space? That's because you were playing the game of goodness while they were playing the game of power. They knew you'd over-explain. You'd forgive first. You'd stay longer than you should. You'd be the one to apologize even when it wasn't your fault. And once they realize you won't escalate, won't raise your voice, won't walk away, won't flip the script, they will escalate, and they'll win. Machiavelli saw this dynamic play out in the corridors of power. You see it in your relationships, in the workplace, even within your family. People don't challenge the dangerous ones, they challenge the emotionally available ones. Because they know your empathy will halt your retaliation before your pride ever has a chance. But the moment you become a quiet threat, everything shifts. They flinch before they speak. They second-guess their tone. They choose their words more cautiously. They hesitate before crossing the line. Why? Because suddenly, even though you're not barking, there's a chance you might bite. That's the power of being unreadably loved. Holding back. People gauge control by your reactions. Can they make you flinch? Can they provoke an explanation? Can they pull you into chasing? Can they soften your stance? Each time you do, they mark you safe. But every time you don't, they mark you as dangerous. Dangerous doesn't mean chaotic. It means uncertain, untouchable. Machiavelli understood this timeless truth. The moment your emotions become predictable, others will begin crafting your fate around their preferences, not your principles. But when they can't anticipate your reaction, they wait. They observe. They comply. You spent your what? You spent your whole life trying to be loved first. Now, try being feared quietly. Not with loud words or overt threats, but with quiet unpredictability. Calm silence, with the refusal to bleed simply because someone demands it, because the man who enters a room wearing a smile is easily forgotten. But the man who walks in, calm, composed, with no need to speak, he becomes something else. He becomes a presence. And presence, once established, lingers far longer than any voice ever could. Machiavelli understood this truth deeply. He never lifted a sword unless he'd already won through perception alone. In the world we live in, it's rarely about what you truly are, it's about what others believe you're capable of. Perception, not reality, dictates respect. You don't need to be dangerous, you only need to be seen that way. But how do you achieve that without ever raising your voice? You begin by mastering your visibility, control who gets access to your energy. You decide when to speak and when not to. You own the silence, because in every room, one rule always remains. People fear what they cannot decipher, and they respect what they fear. Step 1. Never show your full hand. Those who speak the loudest reveal everything's their goals, their insecurities, their strategies, their triggers. They expose their inner world because they crave validation. And in doing so, they become easy to dissect, easy to manipulate. The louder they are, the simpler they are to predict. And anything predictable can be dismantled. But Machiavelli didn't teach transparency. He taught opacity. He knew that the moment someone can read you, they can plan to replace you. But when they can't read you, they are forced to plan for you. So, you speak less. You react more slowly. You let your true intentions remain clouded, not to mislead, but to manage how others interpret you. Because in an age where everyone is desperate to be seen, it is the one they can't quite define that consumes their curiosity. Step 2. Don't defend, don't explain. The fastest way to dismantle an illusion of strength is to become defensive. When someone criticizes you and you rush to explain, you confirm their perception. If they say you're distant and you justify your silence, you unintentionally reveal that you care more than you pretend. Every time you explain yourself, you send a silent message. You still have access to my emotions.
8.
But Machiavelli, he would simply stare, offer a neutral nod, perhaps a polite smile, and say, "Noted." That's how you become a true threat. You observe everything, absorb everything, and return nothing. No reactions. No emotional leaks. It's just silence that demands interpretation. Step 3. Send mixed signals deliberately, or a threat doesn't have. To root only has to be unpredictable. People don't fear what's consistent. They fear contradictions because they can't be prepared for them. Machiavelli would praise an ally one day, then replace him the next. He'd smile in conversation, then deliver silence for weeks. He would offer kindness without warning, then disappear without explanation. Why? Because nothing destabilizes someone emotionally like inconsistency. And when emotional stability is removed, what follows is psychological submission. You don't need to be cruel. It's just confusing enough. It's confusing enough that people hesitate to test you because they're unsure which version of you they might meet. This is what modern society calls mystery. What Machiavelli understood as a necessary illusion. Step 4. Appear composed when ... others lose control. The greatest form of intimidation. Self-control in the presence of chaos. That's the quiet dominance most people never master. When others gossip, remain silent. When they raise their voice in anger, blink slowly. When the room panics, speak with clarity and calm. When they insult you, tilt your head and smile just slightly. Why? Because every small act of stillness sends one clear message: you can't shake me. And if you can't shake me, then you can't move me. And if you can't move me, then maybe you should be afraid. Afraid of what I might choose to move next. That kind of composure, that refusal to escalate emotionally, is where true power begins. It's when you stop being just another voice in the noise and become something else entirely. A presence. Center of gravity, they quietly orbit, unsure if you'll react or remain still. Machiavelli would rather wait to deliver a single phrase at the end of a conflict than waste his energy on 100 pointless defenses during it. Because when words are rare, they gain weight. And when people can't predict what you'll say next, they begin altering their behavior in advance just in case. That's not just communication. That's command. Most people hear threat and picture violence. Hear dominance and imagine control through force. But Machiavelli understood something more subtle. He wasn't fascinated with brute strength. He was fascinated with the kind of power that flows from presence alone. Because in any room, the most feared person is rarely the loudest teats, the one doing the least while still being noticed the most. It is much safer to be feared than loved. He wrote, "If you cannot be both, not because fear makes you ruthless, but because fear makes others respect your silence, you don't need to lash out. You only need to let them believe you might." That belief in spoken, invisible is stronger than any argument you'll ever give, the unthreatening. They're welcomed, included, and disrespected. Let's talk psychology. When someone doesn't fear losing you, they begin to take liberties. They waste your time. They talk over you. They demand more than they give. They expect endless explanations. They ask for favors with no intention of returning them. Why? Because your presence lacks perceived weight. You are too safe, too predictable, too nice, too accommodating. And in a Machiavellian world, these aren't virtues. They're vulnerabilities just waiting to be tested. So what does a real threat look like? It's not a raised voice or a weapon or revenge. A real threat is silence after being disrespected. It's calm composure while rumors fly. It's being emotionally unreadable, never giving them the satisfaction of knowing what you feel. It's the subtle disappearance from a room that leaves an echo behind. That is fear. And fear is your leverage. You're no longer just a person. You become a consequence. And once people experience that consequence, your detachment, your vanishing presence, your quiet refusal to chase after being wrong, they begin to link your absence with a shift in their world. When you stop replying, they start reflecting. When you speak less, they overthink. When you don't show up, they feel the void. That absence becomes a mirror, a reminder. Not because you punish them, but because they suddenly realize something they weren't prepared to face without. His validation, I don't even know how to measure myself anymore. That is psychological warfare. Machiavelli didn't need armies to create fear. He needed silence, distance, uncertainty. Because when your next move is hidden, when people can't decipher your motives, they do one of two things. They pull away in caution, or they try to win you back. Either way, it's a win. Both outcomes give you power. You're either left alone in control, or pursued with desperation. Build the wolf, kill the dog. There's a reason phrases like kill the dog and you have gone viral. There's a reason. Machiavelli demands the wolf, because it speaks to a shared pain. Everyone feels the sting of being the emotional dog. Loyal after betrayal, friendly after mockery, obedient even after being ignored. You know the feeling? And everyone dreams of becoming the wolf. But here's what most don't understand. The wolf doesn't bark. He doesn't announce his power. He doesn't seek sympathy or recognition. He simply watches. And when he finally moves, no one is ready. That's who you must become. You don't bark. You don't explain. You don't beg for validation. You calculate. You observe. You withhold. You let your presence say what your words never will. You let people feel the chill in the room, and they know it came from you, even if you never raised your voice. The unforgettable are often quiet. Here lies the irony. Loud people are remembered in the moment. Still people, they live in memory. Because after you leave, you haunt. People replay the silence. They question it. Why didn't he respond? Was he watching me? Was he planning something? That mystery unsettles them. He gave no closure. And when there is no closure, the mind keeps spinning. That's where threats are born, not from what you did, but from what you could do. Not from action, but from potential. You don't need to speak to dominate a room. True power is rarely vocal. It's sensed. It's in how you sit, how you walk. It's in what you don't do while everyone else is desperate to be noticed. Machiavelli would not bark commands. He would wait. He'd observe. He'd let others spill their truths, expose their plans. And then quietly, strategically, he'd make them fear the silence between his words. The pause. The unpredictability. You want to become a threat? You start small, with daily habits that shift how others perceive your reach. Habit 1. Never. Be the first to react. When someone says something offensive, inflammatory, or emotionally baiting, pause. Most people rush to respond. They want to be heard, to be right, to strike first. But not you. You wait, you blink, you absorb. You allow their energy to bounce harmlessly off your calm. Because in every room, The one who reacts first is always seen as the weaker one, the impulsive one, but the one who waits they become, the one everyone watches. The one whose move is feared because it hasn't arrived yet. Machiavelli would rather let someone believe he didn't hear the insult than respond too early, because that pause, it's not hesitation. And people fear being calculated more than being confronted. Habit 2. Speak slower. Say less. Leave earlier. It sounds deceptively simple, but it rewires the way people see you. Speaking slowly signals control. Saying less communicates value, and leaving early, that fuels mystery. Most people talk to be understood, but real. Power doesn't chase understanding. It invites interpretation. You want people to ask not because you confuse them, but because you intrigue them. What did he mean by that? Was he agreeing or warning me? Why did he leave when the energy shifted? These aren't just questions. They're signs that psychological presence has taken hold. Machiavelli made people nervous without raising his volume, not because he was loud, but because he was elusive. He never stayed long enough to be fully understood, and what people can't define, they instinctively begin to fear. Habit 3. Withdraw to reinforce presence. The most dominant figures don't always have to be seen, but when they are, everyone feels it. Why? Because they resist the urge to over-apper. They don't saturate spaces. They don't linger too long in conversations, group chats, or confrontations. They leave before their presence becomes ordinary. The dog is always around, familiar, accessible. The wolf, however, appears suddenly and vanishes just as fast. When the wolf is gone, there's a silence that makes everyone look for him. That's how Machiavelli trained power through scarcity. Not by being loud, but by being missed. Be the one they wonder about. It's the one whose absence says more than someone else's presence. That mystery, when used intentionally, builds a gravitational pull. Habit 4. Never over-explain your moves. Explanation feels like clarity to you. Do you want to be fair, transparent, maybe even kind? But Machiavelli understood that every word of explanation is a step away from power. If you say no, say it once. No long speech, no gentle packaging. Changed your mind? That's enough. You walked away. Let that be the ending. No emotional footnotes. No apologies. Because the moment you begin to explain, you begin to defend. And the moment you defend, you lose your position. You're no longer leading, you're negotiating, and a threat never negotiates. Habit 5. Maintain emotional neutrality in social games. People test boundaries not always with aggression, but with subtlety. They'll toss in a sarcastic remark. They'll make a joke about your silence. They'll flirt, guilt trip, or provoke you just to see if you'll break your center. Why do they do this? Because they can sense it, that unreadable energy, that stoic command it unsettles. They want to decode you because not being able to decode you makes them feel small. If they can't break you, they'll have to assume one thing. You're stronger than they are. Let them assume. Let them try and fail. Smile without warmth. Observe without attachment. Withdraw without explanation. Because the more they attempt to read you, the deeper your mystery grows in with it. Your influence, Machiavelli didn't just act powerful. He trained rituals of restraint. Every motion was intentional. Every pause calculated. His presence whispered a message. You don't know what I'm capable of, Ond. You never will. But if you push me, you might find out. There's a razor thin line between being a mystery and being forgotten. Between silence that commands attention and silence that dissolves into background noise. Machiavelli's genius wasn't in choosing fear instead of respect. It was in knowing how to command both at once, so that even when he said nothing, his name still echoed in the room. Fear alone is fragile. Fear without respect breeds rebellion. If people only fear you, they will smile to your face, but plot your downfall behind closed doors. They'll nod in agreement, yet quietly gather resentment. On the surface, they submit, but beneath that, they scheme. This is short-term power. It controls people for a moment, but it also makes them fantasize. About your fall, Machiavelli knew this. It's why he didn't just command silence. He earned respect through unpredictability. His influence wasn't the result of shouting or intimidation, it came from a deeper place. Fear, when used correctly, must be balanced. It should not stand alone. True dominance is achieved when fear is layered with a form of controlled admiration. Not love, not even likability, but reverence. The kind of reverence that whispers, "He could destroy me, but hasn't." Yet respect without fear breeds entitlement. If people only respect you, they might applaud your leadership, they may trust your judgment, and speak highly of your values. But over time, admiration without fear loses its sharp edge. They'll start to expect more than they contribute. They'll talk over you. They'll interrupt you. They'll assume your kindness is guaranteed. And once they begin to feel comfortable enough to treat you casually, something dangerous happens. They stop watching you closely. And the moment you're no longer watched, you're underestimated. The solution? Tension. The most powerful people move through the world with a quiet tension following them, not chaos. It's not theatrics, but a presence that's impossible to ignore. It's the kind of energy that makes people second-guess their words around you. You're kind, but not to be tested. You're composed, but not to be played with. You're silent, but clearly not sleeping. That tension keeps people emotionally alert in your presence because they don't know what part of you is real and what part is strategic. And the moment people start calculating your depth, instead of assuming it, they stop trying to control you. So, how do you build that tension? Machiavelli would do it like this. Always be consistent in your control, but inconsistent in your emotional display. You're composed every time, but not warm every time. Sometimes you're observant, sometimes unreadable. Sometimes you give a look that says you know more than you're letting on, but never anger, never desperation, never surrender. Always collected, but never entirely reachable. That emotional unpredictability keeps people off balance. You offer one moment of clear precision, then disappear. You don't speak often, but when you do, your words are surgical. You end an argument in a single sentence. You correct a mistake once and never mention it again. Then you go. You vanish from the conversation. You walk away from the discussion. You leave the message open-ended. No repetition, no reminders. That one controlled moment lingers longer than 1,000 speeches. It's lasting tension. You don't beg people to value your presence. You train them to feel the loss of it. Machiavelli wouldn't plead for validation. You wouldn't threaten to. Walk away. But he would move in such a way that when he left, the room felt colder. You stop replying. You stop nodding. You stop offering the usual signals of engagement. Suddenly, you become professionally cold. You leave a meeting early without a word. No announcement. No justification. Just stillness, then absence. And they will feel it. Because only now do they realize your presence had value they never measured. And next time, they step more carefully. Let praise exist without confirmation. When people compliment you, you don't soften. You don't deflect it. You don't return the favor instantly. You hold their gaze, nod once, maybe offer a subtle smirk, but never validation that reads as submission. Why? Because accepting praise without emotional dependence tells people something quietly unsettling. You already know you're worthy. And their words were a courtesy, not a necessity. They spoke out of politeness, not because they believed you required their validation. This is how you walk the line. You allow people to admire your stillness, yet quietly dread the uncertainty that surrounds it. That tension, deliberate and cultivated, is what sets you apart. That's how Machiavelli would have ruled in the modern world. The loud voices demand attention in the moment, but the quiet ones are the ones who linger in memory. Machiavelli didn't just want to command people while he was present. He aimed for something far greater, to take residence in their thoughts long after he exited the room. Because real power is not defined by dominance. It's defined by presence. Presence that endures even in absence. And the most formidable kind of presence is the kind that never felt the need to explain itself. Men are quicker to forget the death of a father than the loss of their inheritance. Now ask yourself this: what kind of man must you become so that when you vanish, your absence feels like an inheritance lost? Let's begin crafting that version of you piece by piece. Obsession is not born from constant availability. It is born from strategic distance. People do not obsess over what they fully understand. They become fixated on what came close, but remained out of reach. That's how you become unforgettable. You are real enough to be felt, but elusive enough to never be claimed. You offer them a single moment of eye contact that seems to look past them, a few words that cut deeper than expected, a calmness that makes the emotionally unstable shift uncomfortably in their seat, and then you disappear. That absence loops in their minds like a scene with no ending, and it becomes a thought they revisit but can't resolve. Strategy 1. Don't give them what they expect. Most people give away too much, too soon. Overly friendly, overly talkative, eager to be liked. You are not most people. You speak less. Smile only when it means something, and never offer more than necessary. The contrast you create is so sharp that it forces people to adjust. They slow their speech. They measure their words. Their breathing becomes more deliberate around you. Why? Because your energy has shifted the gravity of the space without demanding it to have taken control. Strategy 2. Let them project, then withhold. People will label you. He's intense. She's cold. They're impossible to read. Let them. Once they start projecting, they begin obsessing. They'll rewind your silence, analyze your glances. They'll build entire narratives trying to decode the parts of you they were never invited to see. But don't correct them. Don't clarify. Their imagination becomes your best ally. Their confusion becomes a magnet, drawing them back again and again. Strategy 3. Leave them mid-sentency, emotionally or literally. Most people crave closure like oxygen. They want tidy conversations, clean conclusions, a proper goodbye. But you end conversations just before they feel complete. You disappear moments before they feel prepared. You remain silent just after they expect you to speak. Why? Because that small disruption leaves a psychological hook behind. They replay the moment, trying to finish what you never did. That's how you transform simple presence into lasting obsession. Strategy 4. Protect your inner world, treat it like a kingdom. A realm only you can navigate, with walls built not to keep people out, but to keep your clarity in. When they ask what fuels you, you simply say, I'm focused. When they ask how you're feeling, you reply, always adjusting. And when they press further, asking what you really want, you answer, that depends on the day. Every response is deliberate. Every phrase is calculated. You offer them glimpses, never a full map. Hints, never headlines. Because the moment someone fully understands your why, they will begin plotting your how. And once they can trace your motives, they will try to direct your movements. But when your inner world feels like a fortress, calm, impenetrable, vast, they stop knocking. Instead, they begin observing in silence. They stop asking and start speculating. And long after you've moved on, they're still thinking of you, turning over every word you left behind, trying to decode what you never explained. Machiavelli's genius was not in being remembered as a great man. It wasn't about fame or adoration. It was in being remembered as a man who could have done anything but chose when, how, and if. And that if, that lingering possibility, that's the hook. That's what they can't forget. Not certainty, but ambiguity. That space where imagination takes over. That's where your legend lives. You've now entered the final phase. The moment where silence isn't just a strategy, it becomes your default setting. You don't repress your emotions. You master them. You feel deeply, but reveal selectively. You don't announce every wave inside you. You decide when, where, and if it's worth expressing. The power is no longer performed. It's embodied, quietly, disciplined. Machiavelli's final form wasn't loud, it wasn't brutal. It was controlled. Because real dominance isn't about forcing obedience through fear. It's when people adjust themselves instinctively, just in case you're watching. It's not about commanding the room. It's about shifting the atmosphere without saying a word. The unreadable man cannot be cornered. Once they believe they understand you, they begin trying to manage you. They categorize you, expect reactions, calculate your limits. But when they realize they'll never truly get to the bottom of youth, they stop. They stop trying to fix, label, or control. They back off. And in that moment, you gain what few ever do. They give you space, because you are now unpredictable. And what's unpredictable becomes untouchable.